I've had it since I was a baby. Left on the porch the day my mother brought me home from the hospital. Box unmarked, but adorned with a shiny red bow. We were never quite certain where it came from. That's Jack. It sure is cute, my mother remarked. My 18th birthday was a few weeks ago, and we were cleaning out my old things. I'm going away to college next month, and Mom is planning on turning our storage area into a craft room. Actually, I've always found it a little unsettling, I said, my face wrinkling as she passed it towards me. It's got a certain peculiarity. I went to put it in the pile for the dump, but before I could drop it, she snatched it back. Absolutely not. I've always loved Jack, and you need a piece of home to take with you to your new dorm. It's not like you can cover up with your baby blanket anymore. She placed her finger on the handle and began to turn it rhythmically. The haunting nursery rhyme sound began to fill the room, and it felt like the music was seeping into every crevice. I knew what was coming, but I still couldn't help but jump when the clown burst free of the box that held it captive. My mom laughed. Honey, you have got to relax. I know you're stressed with all the changes coming up, but it will be great for you. Let's go get lunch, then you can come back to pack. She had a point. Moving away from home that I've always known did make me a little anxious. It's only ever been me and Mom. We've always been pretty close. I got up and went to change into some less grubby clothes for lunch. As I got near the doorway, something gave me pause. Couldn't quite explain it, but I felt the overwhelming urge to turn around. As I turned, I saw the clown staring back at me with its permanently sewn-on grin. Sorry, buddy, I'm definitely not taking you with me. I slowly opened my eyes, the sunlight comfortingly warm on my face. I smelled the distinct aroma of my favorite childhood breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes and bacon. Moving day is finally here. I don't let myself feel the weight of it yet. Instead, I hop up and make my way downstairs. There she is, the college girl. I thought you could use a little treat this morning, Mom said, coming over to squeeze me tight, her cheek against mine. I'm so proud of you, honey. Now let's eat. After breakfast, I showered and got ready for the day ahead. I felt excited and nervous, but not sure which emotion was more prominent. I had already gathered my things at the bottom of the stairs the evening before. I could hear my mom loading everything into the back of the SUV, so I quickly brushed my hair and went down to help her. Mom, I got it. You're going to throw your back out again. I lovingly nudged her out of the way before placing my belongings into the vehicle. After about 20 minutes of trying to arrange everything to fit, I finally solved the puzzle. All right, Mom, we're ready to go, I yelled across the house. It already felt a little emptier. I leaned against the wall, taking it all in for what could be the last time for a while. I was moving 5 hours away, and without a car, making it back home wouldn't be easy. Honey, look, you almost forgot it. Mom came down the stairs, holding the jack-in-the-box in her hand. Great. I wanted to leave that dreadful thing behind, but if it meant a lot to Mom, then whatever. I can toss it in a drawer or something. Certainly won't make any friends by leaving it on display. Now we're ready, Mom said, grinning and giving me a big hug. It was time to hit the road. It was November, a few weeks before my first college final. I hadn't exactly adjusted amazingly to dorm life, but I couldn't complain either. My roommate Sarah was friendly enough, but our relationship was mostly like an older sister, constantly trying to give her dorky sibling a makeover. Me being the dork, of course. You have to come out tonight. You've been studying way too much. It's only a couple of drinks with the guys. I won't take no for an answer. Honestly, you gotta get away from the dorm room. It's so stale. Sarah stared at me, waiting for a yes. The look on her face told me that I wasn't going to get out of this one. Begrudgingly, I agreed. About an hour later, yeah, it took her that long to get ready, we headed out. We were going to a local bar. It's basically a frat boy hangout. But I was content to have a beer and sit in the corner, pretending to have a good time before I made an excuse to head back to the dorm. The place was packed, full of students who didn't care about studying because they were here on Mommy and Daddy's money. Well, unlike most of them, I actually needed my good grades to keep my scholarship. Sarah found me at a small table and handed me a beer. "Drink! You'll feel better in no time." I could hardly hear her over the blaring music and the chaotic crowd of voices. I definitely needed a beer to get through the night. I chugged it down quickly. "Damn, kid, didn't think you had it in ya," Sarah remarked. I didn't either. I'm not usually a big drinker, but it was actually pleasant, so I ordered another one, along with some fries. It didn't take long before I started feeling what I assumed was an alcohol buzz. It was foreign to me. I'd never drank before. Was this really what it was like? Was I drunk? I felt out of control, floating almost. My vision blurred, and I could only just make out Sarah standing in front of me. "Where'd you come from?" My speech was a little slurred, but I didn't hear a thing, even though her lips were moving. "Huh?" She took my face in her hand and spoke loudly. I could hear her this time. "Let's get some fresh air." She escorted me outside the bar and into what looked like a spare parking lot in the back. It was dimly lit and a little spooky, but thank goodness it was quiet. "Be right back," she said, and then she was gone. It was definitely more spooky now that I was alone. I felt a hand on my back and assumed that Sarah had returned, so I spun around and it wasn't Sarah. Suddenly I was surrounded by 3 guys. The smell of cheap aftershave and alcohol mixed with nicotine in the air. Wait, I recognized some of these faces. They were the guys that Sarah and I had met up with at the bar. "Listen, if you're looking for Sarah, she already went back inside. Sarah told us you'd be here," said one of them. That was the last thing I remember about that night. Rather, it's the last thing my brain will let me remember. I woke up in my dorm room bed, scratches on my face and hands and chest and legs. My right eye has a giant bruise. My whole body hurts. I don't want to think about what happened to me in that parking lot. I didn't see Sarah. I wondered if she was hurt, or wondered where she was. I painfully sat up in bed. My vision was slightly blurry, but I could make out Sarah in her own bed. I grabbed her shoulder and gently shook her. "Sarah, are you okay? Please wake up." She stirred back to life. She saw my face and immediately gasped. "Jesus, kid, that may need stitches." That was it. No shock, no shouting. It was like she already knew what I was going to look like when she woke up. Wait, she looked perfectly fine. What was going on here? My mind started spinning back to the parking lot, back to Sarah leaving me to get back to the beer. The beer. You did this to me," I hissed at her. "How could you?" Tears started rolling down, stinging every scratch as they dripped off onto the floor. Her cheeks flushed, and I knew she was holding something back. I didn't know. They told me they were just going to scare you. I never meant for you to get hurt." But there's hardly any emotion in her voice. "Bullshit. You knew what they were putting in my drink, and you knew you were going to leave me alone in that parking lot. You're a monster." I stormed out of the room. I had nowhere to go, but I slouched down by the trees and cried. One of my study buddies found me there. Seeing Jordan's face brought me comfort. She let me come back to her dorm room. I was too upset to tell her what had happened, what I remembered and didn't remember. I fell into a deep slumber on my bed and didn't wake up until early the next morning. Jordan was asleep on the floor. I slowly tiptoed out of her bed and grabbed a glass of water. I needed to go home. I just wanted my mom. Usually, Sarah didn't wake up until 10 on Sundays, so I decided to go pack a bag and try to find a bus to get me home as soon as possible. As I began to turn the key for my room, something immediately felt wrong. I'm scared to open the door, but my need to get home was more powerful, so I did, and then I saw it. Jack. Jack was in the middle of the floor, still smiling his permanent grin. But how? I couldn't hear anything over the sound of my own heartbeat. My breathing was quick and shallow. My arms were covered in chill bumps. Then, oh God, I finally took my eyes off the grinning little clown and saw Sarah. She was lying in her bed, her throat sliced open. She was surrounded by a pool of blood, and it was still dripping down onto the cold tile floor. The sound of my heartbeat was now replaced by the sound of the dripping. Drip, drip, drip. The door was locked. The window was closed. Who could have done this? There had been no one in here but Sarah. And Jack. Drip, drip, drip. He's always been unsettling. But there's no way. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense. My breathing is even more shallow. My vision began to fade. I thought I was going to pass out again. I thought I woke up on the floor. There's barely any sunlight coming through the windows. The whole day had passed. Suddenly, everything came flooding back. Sarah and Jack. Where are they? I didn't see Sarah on the bed. I didn't see Jack either. There was no more dripping. Just silence. Even the bloodstains were gone. It was like she was never here. But I know what I saw. The thought of it makes me vomit onto the floor. I was shaking. The sound of my heartbeat filled my head again. I heard something else now. Something like music. I crawled towards the sound. I'd heard it before. My brain was having trouble putting it together. I crawled closer. It sounded so familiar. Then I placed it. Jack. The tune is now more haunting than I ever could have imagined. Do I dare inch any closer to it? I have to. I have to know. It's coming from outside the storage bin, where I put it so many months ago. I slowly opened the drawer to see it. That grin. That red nose. Jack. I grabbed it and ripped open the door to the dorm hallway. I run as fast as my legs will take me and dump it into the nearest trash bin. I still hear the music playing as I walked away. I heard it all. Sarah's voice, my breathing, and the drip, drip, drip. It was December 23rd, and I was sitting next to my mom on the couch, underneath the quilt my late grandmother had made before she died. Christmas tunes hummed low in the background as my mom snored. The embers in the fireplace glowed red hot beneath the log that had burst itself in half. Bernice, our cat, slept quietly in the spot she claimed as a kitten. Home. I wasn't sure if I'd ever make it back after everything that happened, but now it was a few days off from Christmas, and life felt almost normal again. At least I had tried to make it feel normal. It wasn't easy. Those thoughts cut through the silence sometimes, when you least expected it. Suddenly, my brain whispered a single name. Sarah. They never found Sarah. As a roommate, I was naturally questioned. I said I hadn't seen her since the night at the bar. I wasn't sure how I had ever come up with an explanation for the events that occurred. I'm not sure I know what happened. Sometimes I try to convince myself that I imagined it all. All I know for certain is that Jack's gone. Cast off to some far-off landfill, hopefully smashed into a million pieces and burned for good measure. Doesn't matter now. All that matters is that I'm home. I let my thoughts get taken over by the sound of the fireplace crackling, Christmas carols, and what is that? It was quiet, but it was there. I sit up on the couch and tilt my head back towards the stairs. I turned the radio off so I could hear more clearly. It couldn't be. I listened closer. There's no denying it this time. Jack. The music stopped, just short of the moment where Jack would come flying out freely from his metal cage. The house went completely silent. I walked towards the stairs, and suddenly I froze in place, terrified to shift my gaze upward. Do it. Just do it, I told myself. It's a stupid clown in a stupid box that might not even be there. You're probably just dreaming. Finally, I looked up towards the landing. Jack, the same grin as always, stared back at me. I felt dizzy and nauseous, my head pounding. I thought I might. I heard birds chirping. I opened my eyes. What time was it? I was just sitting on the couch with my mom. She must have helped me to bed last night. I remember having a terrible dream that the clown was back. What a nightmare. I really should see about getting in with a therapist one of these days. I made my way back towards the stairs. I wondered if Mom was up. It's Christmas Eve, and our tradition is always to open up a gift today. I'm really excited to see her reaction to everything I picked out for her. I headed down and walked into the kitchen. I startled myself. I keep forgetting Mom's kitchen redecoration included a very ill-placed mirror. I shook it off and laughed at myself. Then I saw there was a note on the kitchen counter. Honey, had to run out early for errands. Go check the living room table. There's a surprise waiting for you. Love, Mom. My Christmas Eve gift. I wanted to wait for her, but she clearly wanted me to have it early, and I can hardly stand anticipation. As soon as I entered the living room, I saw the box on the table. It was wrapped in snowflake paper and topped with a beautiful silver bow. I wondered what it could be. I secretly hoped there would be meticulously hidden holes to allow air for a new kitten. Doubtful. Time to just open it up and see, I guess. I untied the bow and gently lifted the lid off the box. I thought I saw what looked like fur. Could it be my kitten after all? I had to find out, so I fully removed the box lid, hands a bit shaky with excitement, and I screamed as I fell to the floor. My heart felt like it had dropped all the way to my feet. I couldn't breathe or think or function at all. It wasn't fur. It was hair. My mom's severed head lay inside the box. Cold, lifeless marble slits where her eyes used to be. Her ruby red lipstick is perfectly in place. My lifeline. My best friend. My home. I felt like I was going to spiral into nothingness. I had to call for help. Who cared about the explanation? My mother was gone. Someone or something needed to pay. My whole life had been ripped away from me in an instant. I managed to pick myself up off the floor and stumbled back across the house into the kitchen to find the phone. Instead, I saw another pair of lifeless eyes looking back into mine. In that instant, I knew there was no escape from this. He was there in the beginning. He'll be there until the end. Jack. You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them. Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you're thinking you might like to become one of my patrons, follow the link below to my Patreon. And as always, however you support the show, I appreciate it. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.